Welcome. We read the Gospel of St. Mark today for reflection. Jesus entered the synagogue. There was a man there who had a withered hand. They watched Jesus closely to see if he would cure him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse Jesus. Jesus said to the man with the withered hand, "Come up here before us." And then he said to the Pharisees, "Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath rather than to do evil, to save life rather than destroy it?" But they remained silent, looking around at them with anger and grieved at their hardness of heart. Jesus said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately took counsel with the Herodians against Jesus to put him to death. The Gospel of the Lord. Reflecting on this Gospel, I found out something a little disturbing, that without consciously thinking about it, I find myself somewhat sympathetic to the Pharisees. By that I mean they judged by external observations of rules and regulations. I find I do that, sometimes not with a great deal of thought. It's just how I look at it. But that person must be okay. They keep the rules. They're law-abiding, we say in our country, and in our church, too. And conversely, if someone isn't keeping the rules and the regulations, I find myself judging them, labeling them, sometimes excluding them. Phrases like, "They don't go to church." That's my sole criteria, not whether they're good people or not, but they're not going to church. And almost always the flip side is, "And I am." And therefore there's this unconscious, at least in me, there's this unconscious validation that they're not keeping the rules, but in this case I am. And therefore I'm better than they are, at least in God's eyes. When I realized that, I was embarrassed, but I'm afraid it's true. When I think about it and catch myself, I make an effort to change, but it's still there, deep-rooted. I judge by externals too quickly. And in my own case, I'm much more lenient and forgiving and compassionate, if I think of it at all. Jesus challenges the Pharisees immediately. They were religious. They were law-abiding citizens of the Jewish faith. Jesus probably was one of them. But they had no compassion, at least in this case. They were watching to see if they could capture Jesus breaking the rules, and then they would have him. If he cured on the Sabbath, this man with the withered hand, who would have been labeled a sinner because he was in some way punished by God, Jesus would cure him. And then he would have broken the rule because he's not allowed to do that on the Sabbath. You must keep it holy for God. And so Jesus asked them the question, which is it better? To save someone's life, to be compassionate, to be loving, or keep the rule? He's not saying one is wrong and the other is right. Which is better? And of course they won't answer because they'll condemn themselves. Jesus looks at the man with the withered hand, fully aware of what the general judgment was, that he was classified as a sinner because of something his parents did, perhaps, whether it was a personal sin or not. And Jesus doesn't even allude to it. He sees a person in need. He sees a person who had compassion because perhaps of his own limitations. He was aware of what it was like to go around with the burden, or as we would say, to carry this cross of the withered hand. And so Jesus says, put out your hand, and he cures him. And then there's a little aside. He was angry at the Pharisees. Was Jesus angry because they had broken the rule? I don't think so. I think his anger was solely because they wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't let Jesus' compassion touch their lives, or better still, touch their heart. They continued to live by the rule only. And compassion, forgiveness, healing, inclusion, not part of their life. But the rules, knowing what's required, and living up to it as far as they would judge others, yes, they were good at that. Meanwhile, they slipped out and plotted to kill Jesus because he was just breaking the rule. Isn't that incredible? Except I do that sometimes, where I will judge somebody, and I find myself angry because I think they maybe offended me. And maybe they have, maybe not. But the point is, I can get myself so worked up. I can hear myself revving, going angrier, getting angrier and angrier. It's like my tires are spinning in the ice, and I can't get traction. I just sit there and stew, we say, over the real or imagined offense that I've experienced. How dare they offend me, the rule keeper? And of course, if I could get by that. The ironic part is most of the time the people I'm angry with or think have offended me are totally unaware or indifferent to my state of affairs. But I just grind away, keep spinning my wheels. I forget that I need to heal myself, that it's my anger, not theirs. They're not inflicting it on me. I'm letting it touch me. I'm letting it change me. I'm letting it blind me. And I don't open to Jesus' forgiveness by letting his example come in. Was Jesus angry at the man with the withered hand? Not at all. Was the man with the withered hand a sinner? I have no idea. It doesn't make any difference. He apparently had a good heart. He was open to Jesus' presence. How do I know that? Well, Jesus says, stick out your hand. And he puts it out. Whatever you say. I trust you. I don't know what you're going to do, but I trust you. I hope you're going to cure me. And he does. That's what he gets for his trust, his faith, his openness to God's presence. How much you and I can learn from that. When I find myself angry or judgmental about others, then I need to stop and say, that's not the God in me. That's not me at my best. That's not me following Jesus. And on the other hand, when I look within myself in those moments of honesty and see that I am a sinner, then rather than become desperate or hopeless, I turn to Jesus and realize he's looking at my heart. He's looking at my sincerity and not my performance. Can I trust him? Will I let him in? Will I let him heal me? We hope that you continue to pray today. Today is the inauguration of our new president. I suggest that we all pray for our own country, that we all learn to live with peace and not labels, that we learn compassion and acceptance, and keep our priorities straight, and let the teaching of Jesus dictate our life. Stay safe and have a good day.